What's up, brother?
Yo, hello, gentlemen.
Yo,
How are we
how you
doing,
doing?
sir?
Good. Thanks for having me.
You're a fellow Canadian, right?
Yes, unfortunately,
A reluctant,
a little bit.
reluctant Canadian.
I have a citizenship, but I'm Turkish originally.
Okay.
And you've fled the country too, right?
I have completely left.
Yes, there's some good timeline participation there around the challenges of the current Canadian reality. So, anyways,
Quite
we
a
don't
few.
have to talk. We won't talk politics here. We got maybe politics in the terms of chain dynamics, but not in country dynamics.
Nice. So
Sure.
Mert, you're the founder of Helius, which provides Solana's most reliable RPCs, low latency streams, and expressive APIs, and I guess also the unofficial hype man for Solana. Is that a title you are, whether you own it or not? I guess.
Well, he owns it.
You own it. You own it. Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
one to start with just how things are going on the Helios side. I think Solana is notoriously more difficult to build on than EVM chains, or maybe you'd push back on that. But so how does your product simplify a Solana dev's life?
Yeah, your intro is correct. We build developer tooling for Solana developers, and we're doing quite well. We're growing very fast. We most recently raised a Series A, or let's say A-B from Han Ventures and like Peter Thiel Founders Fund.
Nice.
Profitable, growing very fast, have a lot of very impressive customers, and most importantly, a great team. And yeah, I mean, we basically we help anybody who's looking to build on Solana just build better, faster, cheaper apps. We only work on Solana, so we have a lot of vertical integration and expertise. And yeah, I mean, we're really just getting started.
I'm curious about the how you look at growth, because it feels like Helios is basically the default provider on Solana, and I'm curious if that growth is mostly just driven by sort of the growth and interest in Solana, or if you have a pretty big motion in bringing net new developers in using Helios.
Yeah, I mean, we measure it mostly in terms of revenue. And so obviously that's a part new people coming in, but also it's expanding current contracts by just building better products that serve their needs. Generally what happens due to, I guess, my Twitter personality is whenever somebody's like even exploring Solana in any sense, they'll just message me or somebody will intro me immediately, and then we'll just go all hands on deck, help them immediately. That's what we did with like Luca and Penguins and Doodles and really anybody. And yeah, I mean, there's some outbound motion, but like in crypto, like outbound motions to institutions tend to be a little weird, where it's like they almost expect you to pay them as opposed to like them paying you a lot of money. So like I found it much better to focus on crypto natives, like traders, and then we also now have the largest validator on Solana, so like staking and whatnot.
Yeah, so you guys were obviously a part of the kind of 0 to 1 moment in Solana, kind of early days of building up kind of the dev tooling side. But I'm curious, as the Solana opportunity has got more obvious and more players like, I don't know, Alchemy, QuickNote, I'm sure there's like hundreds of them have kind of come in. How you think about like defensibility longer term? Maybe it is just brand and your Twitter voice, but curious how you think about that.
Yeah, it's a fascinating question because we were actually the last to market, right?
Oh,
So
interesting.
QuickNote, Alchemy, all of our competitors had already existed, and they had all at least 6 to 7 times more money, much bigger teams, much more time, all these things. And so we really need to, and a lot of VCs passed, especially in the first round, because I didn't have uh, the same size brand that I do today. I think I had like 8,000 followers maybe, and we were very unproven. And yeah, a lot of people passed. They said you'll just get crushed by the competition. But what they failed to notice is that I'm also a Solana developer, right? And I had been developing on Solana myself for a long time, so I understood the problems that the developers were facing, just at a different level than most others. And then you couple that with like very good distribution, a really killer team, and most importantly, it's just going to be focus, right? Solana moves extremely fast, and unless you're very, very focused on it, you'll just fall behind. And that's generally what happens to all the competitors. But then if you have that focus, you can actually compound on it with more technical knowledge to create even better products until you're like vertically integrated, right? So like there's no like moats are a big mistake in venture is like thinking that the moat is like this thing that just like is there. because like that's some secret. And like that can be the case for super advanced shit. But for most businesses, the moat is really earned, right? As you execute and amass either platform switching costs, stickiness, network effects, liquidity effects, all these different things.
I mean, to I guess a byproduct or a requirement for focus is conviction. And so I'm really curious where you got your conviction from for Solana in such an early day.
Yeah, so this one is a little fascinating. So I used to be at Coinbase, and I did work on Ethereum-centric things, so Ethereum itself, but also Optimism, Polygon, some wallet work there as well, ledger work, trading work. And this is like 2021, Solana's still early. And I noticed that, and so I actually had read all the white papers for literally everything. And what's interesting is my background is in communications and signals engineering and math. And if you ever listen to Tolly or like know the early team, they basically have that background, which is like radio and telecom engineering. And so that actually really, when I read it, I was like, okay, this actually makes sense. I know how this stuff works, generally speaking. And my two co-founders, Nick and Liam, we had also done the same program together. And we were like, okay, this makes the most sense. Like, so one interesting framework for thinking is like what problems are soluble and which problems are just impossible to solve. And really, anything that is not barred by the laws of physics is a soluble problem. And so then you work backwards and you say, okay, which system here has physics behind it? And at that time, and I think still currently, Solana is much more like physics aligned than anything else I've seen. And so then it was like, okay, if we build here, there's a lot of work to do, but if we can do that work, then the physics will carry us, and we won't have to worry about like, oh, like the chain doesn't scale, we have to move now, all these different things. And so that was the conviction that we had. It was just like science-based, basically.
Standing on physics. I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel about Solana's positioning today? Obviously, ETH is having a narrative revival. You know, Hyperliquid's maybe a more pure expression of the on-chain Nasdaq thesis. Obviously, Stripe, et cetera, is building the stablecoin chains. Like, where does Solana go from here?
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about competitors and like the way that we think at Solana, and like I'm not Solana, but you know, I would say it's common to Tolly as well, is like if people do things better than us, we will just steal them. We will just say, okay, that looks good. If it helps our users, we'll also do that. Right. And so we don't have holy principles other than what's here, which that says increased bandwidth, reduced latency. And because once you do that, then everything else kind of takes care of itself, right? Like as you make things faster, fee markets get better, market making gets better, etc. And then like from Hyperliquid, we, you know, borrowed the concept of app specific sequencing so we can give like makers a better advantage when they make markets. From Ethereum, it's like, you know, maybe the, let's say the lessons of like institutional trust and things like this, right? And so with Solana, like the thesis is still the same, decentralized NASDAQ. I think Hyperliquid's great as well. But like obviously a lot of their edge comes from vertical control of like the application and the front end and everything. Whereas Solana is kind of just like a different thing where we're just trying to build the network. And as soon as you try to decentralize any of these things, you're going to start running into the same physics problems, right? But we built with those problems in mind the whole time. So for example, Alpengol, the new consensus rewrite, when that happens, finality on Solana will improve 80x to 100x to 100 milliseconds for a global network of thousands of nodes, which is pretty crazy, right? And so if you believe that crypto is going to take off and it'll be like Pareto distributed of like 3-4 chains with most activity, then I find it very hard to see that if you execute at our current competence, that we won't be one of those leading horses.
Makes sense. I mean, clearly your personal brand has been a huge advantage in everything you sort of shared here today. So I'm curious if you have any advice on building a personal brand. And then maybe a follow-up is like, are there a bunch of misconceptions about you that maybe people who just know you from your personal presence online might not get?
Sure. For brand building, there's a few lessons that, let's say, I've drawn. What number one and most important is be authentic, right? Like, do not try to copy. And you see this with like thread wars all the time, where they're like, "Oh, these guys are making threads. I'll just keep making threads." just like I think Van Gogh or Picasso or one of these artists had like the saying like, how do you make the perfect painting? And it was like, make yourself perfect and then paint. And like the concept for that isn't to be like perfect. It's that the brand that you put out is a expression of what you put in, right? And for me, like I just studied engineering. I'm very interested in that. I like jokes. I like humor, all this stuff. I like Solana. And after I consume all that, what I output is just the posts that come out. And then there's some tactical things like don't care too much. Like no one gives a shit. Like people will not remember what you said. So don't be afraid. Don't take yourself too seriously, try to add some jokes or your own flair. And then my favorite is like from David Ogilvy, who's, let's say, the creator of advertising, basically, which is like tell the truth, but make the truth fascinating, right? So like even when you're trying to add value and help people learn things, try to make it like fascinating. Don't write like a 300,000 page essay, etc. So that'd be my those would be my tips, and then just be consistent. In terms of misconceptions, I think there's like a pretty big misconception that I'm like, I absolutely hate Ethereum or something. And it's like, I hate certain parts of Ethereum, most specifically the podcast industrial complex. And like the fact that really anytime anybody technical says like this solution is perfect, it is much better than this in every single possible way. And it's like, well, you're probably not covering the trade-offs here, so let me cover them for you. But like other than that, I've invested in tons of Ethereum projects, Cosmos projects, Bitcoin projects, etc. I obviously like Solana the best, but like it'd be pretty silly to think that one chain can just literally do everything forever. That just does not work like that in any industry.
For sure. So I apologize in advance for asking this, but Jacob really wanted us to. So when base, and I think your answer is pretty clear, but
Jacob asked when base.
Jacob from Zora, he's like, you have Mert coming on today. You need to ask him when base.
So we are doing that.
No current plans. I think there's a lot of problems to solve on Solana still. For us to like consider doing base or really any other ecosystems, I just need to have conviction that like we're a venture-backed startup, right? So like adding like let's say 10 million in revenue or something is just not going to cut it. We need to figure out can this opportunity can actually help us grow 4x, 5x, 10x, right? Can I actually paint the chart to be a very promising story if I work backwards from the future? And like, does it actually align with my competence, right? What I'm good at is fast stuff for traders, high frequency trading, big data, all this stuff. And I know Solana better than most people. So those are my edges. But, we'll see. Currently, and I think, we would never leave Solana. At most, you would probably just expand, possibly. But no current plans.
Amazing, man. Well, we appreciate you hopping on with us today and making time. I'm sure you're very busy and have always appreciated your participation in the timeline. So thanks for hanging out with us today. And I look forward to seeing you again in a few months and see where Helius is then.
Cool, man.
10x,
thanks for having me. Nice beard.
Oh, yes. See, the beard guys get it, Josh. We just get it. It's mad respect. All right, brother. Thank you.
All right.